I'm Pam Stranahan, and today I'm with Judge Mills, and we're doing an interview that'll go in the time capsule for our sesquicentennial project.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So we thought it would be very interesting because you've certainly been judge for a great part of the last few years to really, get some of your story to go in that time capsule.
All right.
Yeah,
See what I can do.
good. So, would you just state your name and for the record?
My name is Charles Herbert Mills Jr. I go by Burt. I have for a number of years.
Great. And you're a junior too.
Right.
Okay. So we'll get all that down there
Yes.
just exactly right. So,
Oh,
and
boy.
there's always something in there. So, you've lived all of your life in Aransas County except for
For the
some military.
military service, 4.5 years I was gone.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that the things that you've done leading up to being judge must have prepared you, for getting into this office. What do you think?
Well, I believe, a businessman who's been in business for himself knows the what it takes to keep something going in the red or in the green or black or what.
Yeah.
Skip that part, in the black.
Right.
And I never even thought about being in politics
Uh-huh.
until Vic Dooley came to me one day and said, "We need young people to run for city council, and I think you'd be the person." I said, "You're crazy. I've got a business to run." And he said, "Well, you need to think about it." So I thought about it, and I said, "Well, I haven't done anything but for the community." So I decided to run for city council, and I won the race and got involved in the city politics. And then 2 years later, I decided I wanted to try to be the mayor, and I ran against the incumbent and beat him and became mayor. And I was mayor for, I believe, 6 years. And I decided to get out of politics, and I thought my turn was in the pickle barrel, as I said. I was done with politics. And some years later, Russell Cole came in my business, the Duck Inn, and he said, "My dad and I've been talking about the county judge's position, and the judge now is not going to run again, so why don't you run?" I said, "You're crazy." I said, I've had my time in politics. I don't need any more. And I went home and told my wife, and she said, "Oh my goodness." I said, "What?" She said, "They planted the seed. You're going to do it. You know what you are." So about 3 days later, I told Russell and his dad, I said, "Yeah, I'll try." And I won that race and got involved in county politics, and it's completely different from city, completely. In the city, I had a manager and somebody that really took care of the business. The county, I'm the guy,
Yeah.
The judge was the person. But I had a good team, and still do, a good team to work with, and it's been great so far.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so growing up, you were living over in Lamar.
Yeah.
With your folks, and I guess probably your dad, even your granddad,
My grandfather was still alive.
still alive, running Mills Wharf.
No,
or
he
something.
he was semi-retired. He was still county commissioner at that time, but he
Uh-huh.
was retired from the fishing business. My father and uncle bought that Mills Wharf from him,
Okay.
and he was there all the time, but he wasn't part of the business.
Right.
Yeah, it was a great time then.
Well, I imagine they put you to work.
Well, yeah, they did, and that's another funny story. I was pretty young when they put me to work on the deckhand, and I got fired. They didn't like the way I cleaned the boats, and so a few years later, my dad said, "You want a real job?" My friend Todd Lee Wynn's got a ranch on Matagorda Island. You want to go to work over there and really have a real job? That'd be it. So I believe I was 13 or 14, and I went to work as a cowboy or cowhand or whatever you want to call it on Matagorda Island, and for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I either rode a horse all day or rode a tractor all day, and had weekends off. Every other weekend we got to go home to the mainland for a couple of days, but we lived and ate and played pool and whatever else for recreation and off times.
Oh my.
But if you worked 12 hours, you didn't have much time to play.
Wow.
But it was a good time, and I enjoyed it, and met a lot of famous people that Mr. Wynn knew,
Mm-hmm.
and flew in on their private planes and stuff. So it's pretty neat.
Gosh, so that gave you a real different experience then
Mm-hmm.
from what I would have imagined with your family.
Yeah,
In Lamar.
and they gave me the ability to understand money. I mean, I made $100 a month, and it lasted. I mean, I was rich.
Didn't have any place to spend it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So then did you come back and then help at Mills Wharf, or did your dad stay mostly in charge?
Well, after that, no, my dad and uncle ran the place. I again attempted to help them out and did a better job the second time and worked there somewhat, deckhand and running a boat, but never run a boat by myself. Always with my uncle and my father with me, and go out. In those days, we'd go from Mills Wharf all the way out to the Gulf, which was quite a boat ride, and then do a little Gulf fishing and come back. And it was quite an experience. But after that, I went to college, and I decided that college wasn't my bailiwick, so I joined the Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
and which my father totally agreed for me to do. And the rest is kind of history. I spent 4.5 years in the Air Force. I met my wife. First duty station was Ellsworth, South Dakota.
Oh.
And because of the 30-foot snow drifts on May the 1st of that year, I decided I needed to go somewhere else, and the only place I could go from there was Vietnam. So in '68, I was in Vietnam, and that was, of course, the Tet Offensive in 1968. And I said, oh my. And but my next duty station was Athens, Greece, and that was heaven on earth, and where I met my wife. And it was a neat time. 2.5 years in Athens was
Wow.
great. I made $500 a month there, and I had my own apartment, and I drove an old Mercedes, but I drove a Mercedes and lived the high life. But can't do that anymore anywhere.
I imagine that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I spent about a month in Thessaloniki with a friend one time.
yeah, that's a neat place too.
Yeah, wow. But 2.5 years, you really got to see a lot of the country.
Yes, ma'am. And I traveled. I tried not to do the tourist deal, and I worked with a bunch of Greek interpreters. So I'd go on. I worked 9 days and was off 3 days. So on the 3-day break, I would make friends with the Greek interpreters. I'd go to their village and meet their people and sit down with them, and it was great fun. I'd go back in the hills and live with them.
Beautiful too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you and Penny marry then in Greece? while you
No,
were part of
I
that?
met her in Greece. She was working as a governess for the King Constantine's in-country representative. He was in exile, and she was their governess. And met her, and I think we probably dated for a year before I popped the question, And we went to England and got married. And then we came back to Greece, and about 9 months and 2 weeks later, our oldest son was born. Our first son was born, I should say. And then 6 weeks after that, or 5 or 6 weeks after that, I got out of the Air Force and came home. When my father was suggesting that I buy into the restaurant that he had owned half of, because his partner had passed away and his wife didn't want to run it anymore.
Wow, so that's early 70s.
Yeah, that was 1971.
Yeah.
And my wife said, "Do you know how to run a restaurant?" I said, "No, don't know anything about it. But I'm determined, so we'll see." So I went into the restaurant business and learned it from started out as a busboy, and then I went back in the kitchen as a dishwasher and salad person and prep and cook, and then I came out and I said, I don't want to go back in there. And anyway, we ran the restaurant for 38 years, and that last year is when the Coles came to me and asked me if I'd run for county judge, and I did, and I won, and then I found out I couldn't do both jobs. I couldn't work from 7 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon and then close my restaurant at midnight. Just wasn't going to work, so I closed the restaurant and sold the real estate.
Well, as I said before, I think all of these experiences really given you a depth to be able to apply to being, in charge of the county or county government.
Well, yeah, I would say working with the people that I worked with in the restaurant showed me how to work, and with the clientele in the restaurant showed me how to handle people and get cooperation from different kinds of people.
Sure.
And when I came into the county government, there were great people here, but after a while, they understood that the way I wanted to run things, and we became a real team, and we got better and better at it as time went on. And I've been here 16 years now, and I'm getting ready to retire, but it's been a good ride. Enjoyed it.
So I have seen, that you really operated with a team approach.
Yeah.
So what key departments? I mean, I guess you really can't. Maybe you can't even pick a department that's most important, but golly.
No, really, I've got. I believe it changes, but I think I have 13 departments that work directly under me.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, I have 17 elected officials that I work with, and that's like herding cats. But I guess there's no most important. They're all important.
Sure.
Facilities, that's really important. Environmental health, that's really important. Road and bridge, that's really important. So
Right.
I just, but once you get somebody in there, the head of that department, I don't believe in micromanaging. Some people do, and that's going on a little bit now. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't work. It just makes things irritable.
Right.
But the departments under me have done a phenomenal job, and I hope it continues.
Yeah. Well, I've worked with a lot of different departments, and it's always been real good. So
they're a great bunch of people, and I'm proud of all of them. Yeah.
So you have to get your different elected officials to stand down sometimes.
Well, I try to. Yeah. They think they can tell my departments what to do. Well, as a commissioner, you only have one vote, and you can't tell my departments what to do. You can come talk to me, and I can tell them. But they found that out, and most of them, I should say most of them have found that out and have worked well with us. But yeah, I've had a good time.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what would you say or have been your best projects or the projects you've been most proud?
Well, that goes back to my fishing background. Cedar Bayou was a place that my father and my family went to a lot, and we camped there and we fished there, and got 1,000 memories of that place. And when I became judge, it was closed, and it was closed by a man several years before. Governor Clements closed it, in fact. I can't remember when, but
Mm-hmm.
because of an oil spill in Gulf of Campeche.
Mm-hmm.
And it was affecting our ecosystem immensely. And there was a 501c3 group that was trying to get it open, but they weren't getting anywhere. And they finally came to me and said, we want the county to take it over. And I said, ooh boy. But Cedar Bayou was in my blood, more or less, so I said, well, let me look into it. And I soon discovered the problem was they didn't know how to handle politicians in Austin. They were being too abrupt, I should say. And so I said, well, okay, we'll take over Cedar Bayou. And it still took us, I think they'd been at it 4 years. It took me 6 more years to get the money to open Cedar Bayou again. And we did that in 2014, September 2014, with a lot of help of Representative Jeannie Morrison. She's a real pit bull in Austin, and she still is. She's not our rep anymore, but I saw her last night, and she's a great lady, and she did us a great job. So we got it open on the September 14th, or 2014, and of course, you know, and in August of 2017, Hurricane Harvey hit, and of all the damage it did, it also closed Cedar Bayou. So I had a challenge to get it open again, and with a little help from my team, a lot of help from my team, we got FEMA to agree to pay for it, and because it was ecosystem related.
Mm-hmm.
So we got it open, and just recently opened it back up, and it's doing a marvelous job. The fish are out there, the crabs are there, the hooping cranes are happy, so everybody's happy right now.
That's great. Wow.
And of course, the courthouse got blown away in Hurricane Harvey, so we're building a new courthouse. Shortly after I was elected, I knew the courthouse we were in wasn't sufficient, and so we had started acquiring the property to put a new courthouse. Then Harvey made a decision for us. We had to do it, and so it's being built as we speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to be great. Gosh. Well, speak a little bit about Harvey. I mean, golly, I'm sure no judge would have been envious of you being in that position at the time Harvey hit.
No, Harvey was was a real peculiar storm because it looked like nothing forever, and then it built up to a Category 4 in a short length of time and only 20 hours out. So I had to make the decision right then, the order of evacuation, and please, I insisted on it. And what scared me was I'd already in past ordered evacuation twice because of storms, and the storms had turned. So I was afraid that the people wouldn't leave this time. Well, they did, because we told them, normally we give you 40 hours. You only have 20 hours now. Get out of here. Don't stay. And they did. 60% of the people left. So that was good. But when we came out of the EOC on that morning after the storm, and I looked around, it just took the air out of me. And everybody else, we just looking around in a haze. And what the heck happened? It looked like the end of the world. And but we dusted ourselves off, and we called in the big guns with Texas Department of Emergency Management, and in no time we had people coming into the county to help us out. And as you know, in 5 years or 6 years since then, the county has not only grown back and looking great, it's grown back better and stronger and looking great.
Yes.
So I'm pretty proud of that too.
I would think it's taken a lot from your office to coordinate all of the pieces.
We because of the help of the Bass family, we had a long-term recovery team of professionals that knew how to work after a storm or a disaster, and because of that, we were far ahead of anybody else in the state of recovering. And also, it taught TDM, Texas Department of Emergency Management, that they need to think about having a long-term recovery plan instead of just hitting it after the storm and saying, now what?
Yeah.
So they have a long-term recovery team now at Texas Department of Public or Emergency Management. Yeah. So they learned a little bit from us.
I would think, in terms of staging, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It was again a team effort, and Bass family helped finance 3 of the team members for 18 months, and they hired other people to work with them, and all of them knew what they were doing after a disaster, and it worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
Really well.
Lots of connections. So again, when you start talking about how for things to really be beneficial and how things are going to work, it's a lot of those connections.
Yeah. Once you get in this office, you need to get connected with the people that can get things done in the state and federal government. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get that done in a short length of time. And so when Harvey hit, I already knew these people. I tell a story. I got a call from a guy named Billy Kirkland, and I said, "Who the heck's Billy Kirkland?" And they said, "Well, it's the president right-hand man." I said, well, you know, I had C.J. Wax in the office, and who's the mayor of Rockport, and I can't remember if I had the mayor of Fulton in the office. But anyway, I said, "Well, let me put you on voice so we can hear you." And I hung up on him.
Oh no!
And I said, "How do you call the White House?" And he said, "Well, you don't." So the phone rang a little bit later, and it was Mr. Kirkland again. He said, "Well, that's the first time I've been hung up on." So we got off to be a pretty good friendship then, and it was, you know, the White House calling to see what they could do for Kansas County, so it was nice. And contacts, and the president came to Oasis County and went over there and met with him and the First Lady, and they were nice and very cooperative and wanted to help. And then the First Lady, as you know, came to Kansas County 2 or 3 times, and the Vice President came to Rockport twice, I believe.
Well, that's something I was going to ask you about, was notables that you have met, but my goodness, you've got a long list.
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah.
So all during that time, not only your local connections, but starting at the state level in Austin.
Yeah, the governor's been, well, when I was first elected was Perry Bass, and I served in a couple of his committees while he was in office. And then when Governor Abbott was elected, he and I hit it off pretty quick.
Right. Gosh. Well, I wonder what other experiences you would like to relate. What's really been exciting? I mean, I can see you're managing your teams and getting things accomplished.
Yeah, well, that's the most exciting part of it was actually, meeting the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States and talking one-on-one with them. And, you see them on TV, you think, you'll never talk to, they don't talk to people like me. Well, they do.
Mm-hmm.
And they are people like us.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exciting.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, I can't imagine. I've only met some retired ones. I've never met a sitting president.
I met George H.W. Bush
Mm-hmm.
when he was running for vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met his son, Governor Bush, when he was running for president.
Right.
But just, shaking a hand and going through a line.
Yeah.
But to get to be able to talk to them one-on-one, it's pretty exciting.
Oh gosh, yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we have had our sesquicentennial last year, and so we really brought up the history a good bit, and we're going to end up putting this in the time capsule. Can you think of other things that ought to go in that time capsule? We ended up getting a safe.
Yeah, that's really nice.
I know, Betty
Yeah.
and Mike Gear was the one who went for that. So we got a big space. We got, a lot of papers. We were concerned before because, the previous time capsule got all wet and, it didn't work having it buried.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to be sure we had something real safe and secure. So we know we can preserve whatever we put in there. Can you think of any kinds of things that ought to go into that?
Well, this is going to go in there.
Oh, good.
Betty says, I need something from your tenure to
Uh-huh.
put in there, so I told her she could have the gavel.
Good.
And I haven't seen the safe, so I really don't know how much space you've got left, but I've got some things that might be able to go in there.
Okay.
I'll get with you later on
Okay.
that.
You bet. Well, don't have to really close it up because we have the idea that it'll go in the new courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been trying to push to get people to think about what ought to be in there. And it's interesting because we want to highlight, 2021
Mm-hmm.
and how people are living, and in 50 years see people be able to see, what Aransas County was like in 2021 and before, but we're not putting a lot of history. We're mainly trying to show what the contemporary life is today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'll really have to put my thinking cap on, but I can't think of anything right now.
Okay, well, the gavel will be a good addition. No doubt about that. It really will.
I'm giving that to Betty next week, so.
Okay. Great. Very good. Well, we'll take good care of it. Certainly getting it in there. So, any other things that you can think of that you'd like to pass on in terms of
Well,
what would future judges do?
I don't know who's going to be able to see this film, but I'm just telling you that I hope that Aransas County is still as beautiful and wonderful a place to live in as it was in 2021.
Very good. Very true. I know there are certain groups. I'm working with different tree committees and
Mm-hmm.
different Aransas First and other groups to keep our natural environment, which I think is the big draw for people here.
Yeah. But when I was growing up, like a lot of young people, they said, if I ever get out of this town, I'll never come back. I said that, and I got out and went around the world, And when it was time, I came home, and I'm glad I did. And I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
No,